Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
yes,
yes,
yes.
yes, yes. Good evening, everyone. We're
Greetings, brother.
here. Blessings, guys. Um, well, welcome to another dynamic program, uh, another edition of the conversation. We'll be talking, we got a lot of talking points and discussions tonight. Of course, you can hit us up, give us your point of view. Leave your comments in the comment section, or you could call us on +592 641 0945. Or,
Well, it's best to call you.
yeah, they could call
Yes.
641 0945. Call me
Little
if
technical
you
things
wanna,
to get through to
yeah,
me.
if you wanna contribute to tonight's program. But before we jump into it, of course, we got to kick it off with our what disclaimer. So go right
Yes,
ahead, man.
sir.
Hmm.
So the disclaimers read: the views, opinions, and statements expressed in the conversation are solely those of the individual hosts and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of our advertisers, Majestic Music Radio, Gem Radio, or Gem Network. The content of this show is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Listeners' discretion is advised. Neither the station nor the network assumes any responsibility or liability for the accuracy, completeness, or validity of the information presented. All content is subject to change without prior notice. But of course, as we just say, you can always Google it as we try to bring the most clear, verified information as possible, direct from the horse's mouth. I've been walking
Pleasant
on my
good,
vice.
good night. Pleasant good night to everybody.
Yes, sir. How everybody doing? The week now start, but we getting through.
Malika, your mic you mute.
Sorry, guys. Today we got a lot. We had so much talking points kind of lined up for the audience tonight. But of course, we usually consult. We don't just come on and talk um, stuff. We usually consult with our team of lawyers or
Yes,
legal representatives.
our brilliant minds.
Yeah, gotta say good night to them. A lot of the stuff that we wanted to bring to the audience tonight, we gotta hold that back until more information can be provided.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the stuff that we wanted to bring to the fro, um, a lot of changes have happened, kind of like in secret. You know, we are now learning of certain developments because it is enshrined that, I mean, the government has the right to release that information or not to release that information.
Hmm.
These are things, we're learning. I always believed, internationally there was, what we call it, the freedom of information.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I think. And again, this is where the puzzling situation comes in, because once you're traveling and you operate based on international law, it's very difficult to then confirm to English common law.
But it's not even just international law, it's just a standard of
Yeah,
laws,
like a standard of law, and we
right?
would have expected change in the legal system. I know for a fact that for a period of time the ruling party was asking for a referendum. I'm wondering if they're still in that mode,
Hmm.
to link with the opposition parties and work on the legal reforms, because I do believe the problems that we're having stems from the legal standpoints first. All right. The laws need to be updated. The laws need to be adjusted for our environment. And the most we can say right now, based on our legal advice, is that there's a lot holding the creatives back
Yes, yes, yes.
in Guyana. There's a lot holding the creatives back. But the most we can say on this is that the creators really have to make a stand on their own, because there is no way that you'll be able to get your due if you're not willing to stand up for what is yours. For example, people using your property, your intellectual property, without expressed permission to use that. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So those are some of the things that, I mean, we can only educate.
Correct. Martin Malachi Norshore when can continue to advocate for y'all.
We can. You cannot.
I mean, we live in a world, right, or a society where we expect certain things as individuals, not just as Guyanese, but as
Yeah.
individuals. And it is more so now that we're looking onto the vast of the world and we're seeing, well, Barbados have certain things, Trinidad have certain things, Jamaica, Brazil, even
Yeah.
Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at our backyard and we say, well, why we don't have. I personally ask myself that question many a times too. Why don't we have? What exactly is stopping us from having? You understand me? Because if we are able to work and achieve set goals or whatever is the outcome, yet we don't have, something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You see it, man? And while we know we could point fingers, as they say, once you point one front, there's
One
what,
game back.
four or three looking back at you.
Yeah.
Understand?
The thing is like one of my friends usually say, well, he was specifically referring to Guyana. The problem is not the politicians and the leaders and all these different things sometimes, but
Yeah.
sometimes the problem stems from the people. And
Correct.
Correct.
if you cannot figure out that your actions or your your kind of behavior and attitude towards choosing leaders or making sure that leaders understand what you need when you're putting them in place or in
Yeah.
power,
Yeah.
that it's important. But you know, we have a society that is so easy to be
Manipulated.
manipulated, you know what I mean, in
Yep.
this type of way that okay, if we catch the person that we think will get an effect on everybody else around in this area that making noise, we can actually control this crowd. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, it's like you normally say. A lot of times we've been sold out for nail and blankets, that type of mentality.
Yeah.
So
Facts.
it's a cheap something that happens, and then the whole picture, because everybody just look at things on the short term of this excitement, or we could come out and boast about what happening at the present time.
Mm-hmm.
But whole long term picture is where the problem is. Nobody sees that.
Yeah.
Nobody, nobody wants to sit and be educated properly in order to say, okay, you know what? This thing makes sense that we can't sit and think about just ourselves. We got to think about what we make, what investment we make now in
Yeah.
our creatives, in anything that we do. Whatever we put in now, it can benefit
Yeah.
me in this lifetime, and also it benefits my generations to come. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of mentality is not there. Another thing I know for sure that Guyana is so slow on is understanding how important icons are from the country, and how if you can actually, actually accept or actually give respect to people that come along the way and create an impact or make something happen because of that individual, and you cannot recognize that fully or properly, how can you actually think about yourself for what is to come or could happen for the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah.
But I'm
But
thinking,
just let me add to that, Sherwin, because one of the things too that is it's in social media. Everybody is talking about the symbology, the use of a particular symbol. One party is using a symbol which is supposedly a symbol of Guyana, but I don't think they fully understand. I don't even think that the gentleman who made a statement regarding that fully understood what it was all about. Because if you have a particular image, for example, the jaguar is on the coat of arms of Guyana, but I haven't seen anybody exactly replicate that jaguar in that image in that way. So that in law, in our estimation, does not conflict with the symbols of Guyana, because I have seen several uses of the jaguar. On top of that, Guyana is not the only territory in the Americas that has jaguars. All right, jaguars start all the way from Mexico, coming down to Argentina, Guyana, Suriname, Venezuela. I mean, jaguars are across this region. So, for us to claim it, that would be in terms of symbology what we have on the coat of arms, which is a standing jaguar holding something. All
Yeah,
right. So that's our symbology. That's our image right there, which I haven't seen replicated anywhere.
Well,
correct.
I would normally say that if you take the complete, but put it like you take the complete map or you take the complete coat of arms, right?
Mm.
Completes the symbol of what it replicates. It
Mhm.
replicates the coat of arms. It replicates the map of Guyana, and you use it. Then it can be an argument. But when
Well,
when you just using one symbol, which is an animal
mhm.
that is connected to that, but has no way in shape or form. Whenever you're doing trademarks, you gotta the thing gotta look close to the thing that you're trying to
That's what I
add.
was pointing out. You can't trademark the live animal.
Correct. You can't trademark something that look like, oh, just the animal, which is the choose animal. But if it look close to the coat of arms, you could say, yo, this thing looking just like
Well, that's called trade dress at that point, because that coat of arms is protected with those standing jaguars on each side.
right. But then
But
again, is there any
mhm,
strong law in Guyana? If we're going back to things like protection, is there any
protectionist laws.
strong laws that is protecting?
Well, I'll tell you what. There are laws that are protectionist laws based on who is applying them at what time, right? Because, for example, in this case, where we have a government official coming out and talking about the use of the Jaguar, if he did understand the issue thoroughly, he wouldn't have said what he said, because the Jaguar that is being used by another political party has no semblance or even close to the coat of arms. It's not even close, because I've seen the poster. Most of it just has the head of the
Hmm.
Jaguar, or if there is let's say a 30-second blip, there is a Jaguar moving, right? So I'm still trying to, well, I'm not trying to, but I know that whatever statement was made about the use of the Jaguar is totally irrelevant.
Correct.
That's totally irrelevant. But those are some of the things that um, we have to look at, because once we have, for example, we had a million odd people in the last 6 to 8 months come into Guyana, and people are going to be looking for new ideas, new products to get to invest money in, and stuff like that. So I'm hoping going forward, um, that we do have more protectionist laws that kind of guide create that environment um, for people who are the creatives. One of the things that Martin and I have reiterated, and we've got a lot of support on it, is we're looking, as we said, we're looking to the political parties for we want to see their manifestos. What are they saying on the issue of intellectual property? Why this is so important is because intellectual property covers everything that comes from your mind. And it's very important that we protect, because our young people are going to be the IT people. They're going to invent stuff. They're going to come up with innovations. And their innovations have got to be protected. Not unless we believe that no Guyanese can actually come up with a product that the world will need. So those are the
Reckless.
scales and balances we need to put in place.
So naturally, right, to tap on the Jaguar aspect of things. Now, just like you mentioned, if we believe then no Guyanese have the brilliance to come up with these ideas, then I think it's clear that we have been proven wrong over time, right? Because if we're looking at the political party aspect of things alone, there are other parties or previous existing parties who would have used different parts, which would be like the water lily and these sort of things, right? Even another party that used the Jaguar. So in that sense, then it would be, yes, this is already in use, so you can use it, right? But then again, I would say it's free reign because Guyana is almost the wild, wild west, especially when it comes to the copyright law. You mute after Malachi.
Or Guyana is the full Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well, we are the pirate of the Caribbean, but when you reach land, which is where the government dwells, right, on the
Right,
soil,
right.
is the wild, wild west. Because everybody is able to pull out and say something and pretend to do something, but then it have little to no effect, right? So,
The funny thing though, is that we learned on some information on a particular case that we were following.
mhm.
Um, that one has still that particular revelation this afternoon kind of still has left me in a state of thinking and reflection, because
So let me shed some light, right? Over the past couple days, we would have been, well, if you go and check on my personal Facebook page, right, which nothing is personal for me, but if you go and check on the page with my name on it, you'll see a few comments and reshares, reposts, whatever you want to call it, on content.
yeah.
And one of the things that came up was the issue of copyright laws, of course, whereby a young lady was highlighting some information.
Hmm.
And she was pretty much enlightening the public that there is copyright laws, and
Hmm.
based on certain treaties and things that was signed,
Yeah.
you know, the creative have the right to protect themselves. But
Hmm.
she was coming more from the beginning standpoint,
Yeah.
whereby if you understand how copyright works, right, the moment you start, it is kind of already in the
Ready. Yeah.
process of
In the
copyright,
process. Yeah.
right? As the legal minds would say, as long as you're able to document it and you document that process, or
Yeah.
you're able to explain that process of how you start. For instance, let's say you're a producer or a beat maker and you're making a beat,
Yeah.
and you have a case and you go to court, you're able now to tell the judge and explain on your side, well, hey, on January 1st, I had a brilliant idea after church, and I went home, pick up the keyboards, and I started to play whatever came to mind. And
Yeah.
then I called my best friend, and he or she came in and played the drums, and then the next person played the guitars, and all together, on the 2 weeks after, we was able to complete the project. 2 months after, we had our first artist on it. That is the
Hmm.
process that the judges is mostly looking
And
for.
as well as the date stamps, all those kind of things.
Correct. So
Yeah.
that is why I explain, the dates as we go and who was able to play their part. because
Yeah.
now you have witnesses. So
Exactly.
that alone, you're able to have a solid case. The
Yeah.
rest is where your lawyer just flow through with the laws,
Yep.
Well,
right?
well, and Guyana election is in the year, and we know
Oi.
that the reason seriously it is something that hopefully in this part of the or this time and age
Mm,
that I just pull up this thing here with the importance of intellectual property rights.
Property. Yeah.
They say intellectual property rights are crucial for our country's economic and cultural development because they are incentivize incentivize innovation, foster creativity, protect investment in new ideas and creations. All right.
Yeah.
Also, they got some subline headlines is encouraging innovation and creativity. All right, and I got some sublines on that. Also, it protect cultural heritage.
Yeah.
And here is the big one, right? That I look at that they should be thinking about promoting public health and safety. One of the big things in society.
Well, one of the things we kept mentioning over and over is that certain ministries should have been dedicated with PSIs out there to educate.
On the promotion public health and safety, it says combating counterfeiting, right? Ensuring product quality,
Yeah.
protecting public health. These are some of the sub headlines under that one because you know for sure nobody can just bring in any and any type of
No,
drugs.
what those laws are protecting is ensuring, for example, we don't get counterfeit goods, right? We don't get counterfeit clothing. If somebody says they're selling you Kalkonai clothing, it is actually Kalkonai clothing. All right. It's not a knockoff of a knockoff of Kalkonai clothing that you're getting. So these are some of the things that we have to understand in the environment. But I also want to ask the question to the audience and the private sector. Why aren't more of the manufacturers of products from Guyana, why aren't they making more of a complaint? Because, of course, we know the other day there's a company in the US that started using banks' IC. They started making the product, and it's very close to Banks trade dress, but there is absolutely nothing they can do. And we again are asking the question: why aren't we fully integrated into the international system where our stuff can be covered and not violated by companies? Like for example, when Martin and I were talking about the pepper pot issue, um, because pepper pot is not uniquely Guyanese, what is uniquely Guyanese is the recipe. So the recipe is where the focus of our protection should be in the case of pepper pot. So I believe, for example, we have a lot of products coming out of Guyana with really good recipes that should be protected, like the barbecue sauces, the chokers, all these things that we throw on food, on fries and stuff that Guyanese actually come up with these sauces. Those recipes is what we've got to go into trademarking and protecting those. And the process, I'm wondering why the process you would have to send, if you, for example, anything to do with patent and trademarking has to go through the UK for Guyana. Even if you go to the deeds registry will tell you you need to get an agent who will then handle this for you. All right, which is quite a few £100 to begin with to start the process. And of course, you've got to pay for the individual, whether patent or trademark. You have to pay for that, but you still have to use an agent. So I'm wondering, with all these constraints that Guyanese businesses have, um, I think they need to foster a new culture in Guyana. Um, around what you were mentioning earlier, the whole IP issue. Why? Because we all know there are companies in Guyana that have copied the names of companies that are in the US and other territories. And it's not something that we should be doing. M&M is a US company. Bed Bath and Beyond is a US company. A lot of these companies' names that you see in Guyana are names of companies that are out of Guyana. And we it's not like these companies have the franchise or, for example, the permission to use these people's things. For example, I don't even think Starbucks is bothering with Starbuds, right? Because there's Starbucks in Guyana and there's a food place in Alberton that's called Starbucks. Starbuds, sorry. Starbuds. In my estimation, that's real close in terms of trade dress, as we know in law.
Who was
So
who was there first?
Starbuds.
Starbucks.
Starbuds was in Guyana first before Starbucks came. But Starbucks is an international brand globally.
So there is a place in I think I don't remember what it was. McDonald's
Yeah, in Jamaica.
in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And they were present before the original
McDonald's from the US.
went over there.
Yeah.
They went over there, they had an issue. And for that reason, I think, according to what I follow, they could not set up shop in that area where
Hmm.
the original or the one that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
present first, they could not set up in that area.
Yeah. They couldn't set up in that area. That was the ruling of the court,
And
actually.
he had full rights to stand up for his stand up and say no, I cannot accept that. It's going to be a
Yeah.
controversy, a conflict of you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
they selling chicken, swimming food, so he beat them with that.
But that's a very similar case to what happened. Let's say what happened with Rudy Grant and the use of his material, the song "Mashing Guyana." That was used by a company, and he basically lost the case. And I'm trying to figure out how did he lose a case like that, seeing that it's pretty straightforward. Your song that you spent your money and created is used by a company to promote their products and their sale during their promotion, and you did not give express permission for the use of your material in that. Neither were you compensated for the use. And I'm still wondering how he lost the case. It's
Is it
mind-boggling.
is it because of the territory?
No, it really had nothing to do with the territory. But I'll take it from my legal luminary. I mean, he didn't have the right legal team. Definitely, he didn't have the right legal team. Maybe he thought he could have done it on his own or with somebody who was not that qualified in the issue of IP, because it's very difficult. I just can't understand how he presented a case that the judge could not see that this material that this person is using is actually belongs to me.
Well, keep in mind though, Guyana is not like how every day we have a criminal case or a family matter case. We don't have a
Yeah,
copyright case, a trademark case, a IP case in general.
true.
So
Yeah.
I I I can't look back and say, well, hey, in 2010 or 2004, you
Yeah.
couldn't go and cite this case like how we could do it in America. We got hundreds of examples,
Yeah, you're 100. You
right?
got a precedent to follow.
And this is why when I come to Guyana, these are some of the things I am looking for, right? Especially in copyright issues, because we have nothing to follow. I estimate if I'm going to court for a infringement case, right, I will have to look at a criminal case and kind of have it make sense. So whereby, let's say, well, Malachi steals my work, right? So I will now have to tell the judge or try to explain to the judge why Malachi was wrong by using a reference from a criminal case to show that what he's doing is criminal, right? So I think we might be able to convince the judge. I'm not sure if we have what is call it, the whole system with a group of people like how Didi Gatal and people judging you right now. I ain't sure if we have that thing, Guyana.
Well, if we have jurors
Mm.
in a case like that, but I don't think you see the problem with our system is that the legal framework for them are a bit backward. We know for a fact, yes, there is copyright laws to an extent. All right, enforcement of those laws are non-existent though. So if persons want to, or if they see there's an infringement on any intellectual property that they own, their only recourse would to be a civil case against. First, it would be, for example, if somebody used your property without your express permission, that would be a cease and desist at first.
Yeah.
If they continue with that, then it would you can then step it to the next level where you can say, okay, well, we'll then go to court proceedings so that you can compensate me for my work. One of the things though that I do believe that some of the establishments, the business community now can really get on board with the whole issue of IP. All of the major hotels in Guyana, all of them have to have entertainment in their lobbies and wherever people are gathered, whether it be their bars or wherever in these places, right? Now, one of the ways to generate revenue, and of course, this generates revenue for the artists and the creatives and generates taxes for the government, is where entertainment spots, Palm Court, Tribal, wherever there's entertainment, they have to pay a blanket license to use people's music. Whether they're using Jamaican artist music, whether you're using Guyanese artist music, it's all music, and the rights to that music they do not have. They do not have the rights to that music. So if they're going to use it, one, they must have express permission to use, and on top of that express permission, there's also compensation for the use of people's material, which you would have to go into an arrangement under that blanket license system, or if you decided to go into a personal arrangement with a few artists because you're going to use their music in what it is that you're doing. So
Correct.
I really, at this point, I really want to encourage the private sector, especially the manufacturers, to look at this issue because later on, I mean, some people might say, I don't need to look at it now. I'm quite comfortable. But you need to look at it because you might have a child, and that child may come up with a pretty nifty invention based on what you already have in place. And they could look at that and what we say, upgrade it or add value to it. And when that happens, then you'll realize how important the measure of the protectionist laws are.
Hmm.
Because when you see what your child potential to invent something that the world would need, and then you realize you can't make no money off of it and all of that, you will be highly annoyed. And you don't want somebody to be able to reach out and take it away
Correct.
and leave your child with nothing. That would be totally unfair. So I do believe that really now is not a time for argument, but a time for understanding the situation we're in, the complexity of where we at this point, the fact that we are moving ahead with infrastructural development, but we need to follow that infrastructural development with the human resource capacity development as well.
Hmm.
And we definitely have to look at the IP law issue because it affects the entrepreneurs, the creators on several levels.
You
All
know,
right.
it's funny that we're speaking on copyright, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at something. I'm sitting in front of a ledge, right? And in front of me, legitly have one, two, three, four shelves.
Hmm.
Four shelves to the TV, regular flat screen TV, decent size.
Yeah.
Second shelf is where I have the computer. Of course, I'm looking at you guys, right? The camera, and then I have an old tape, right? Them radio, them big ugly radio. Third shelf, I'm looking at CDs and
Mm.
DVDs, and the last shelf, I'm looking at cassettes, right? So I pick up a cassette.
A TDK. There's a TDK. I can
uh,
tell.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at all of these stuff. This would be generation of inventions,
Technology.
right? Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Development, where people was able to invent, create, and make money
Sell.
off of. Because
Sell. Make
imagine,
money.
music back in the days on Dissy was a bread,
Yep.
right? Music back in the days on Dissy was a bread. Real money, right?
Yep.
With these two assets. Music now in a digital era,
Mm-hmm.
there's little to no money at all. While I could have sell this here for $10, a CD for about $1, $5, or $100, as we see Nipsey Hussle was able to do,
Yep.
I could only sell my digital music for 99 cents. And then nobody is buying it because it's already digital. It's free to listen. Unlike this, where you had to pay and you have to have this in your possession in order to listen my music, right? So I remember the days when I used to, I had in my era, I want to say, I had the last trickle down of when we used to copy music from one cassette to the another so we could have a whole song, right? I'm not sure if the new generation, the 2000s children understand them thing though, right? More so, understand the value of this. Because in today's time, these exact instruments and things, inventions, is coming back, as they would say. And it's worth way more than we used to pay back in the days. Because if you find the right artist and the right cassette or DVD or CD, that now becomes the archive, right? And you are able to make money whether you open a museum, whether you resell it, as we see in if well, Guyana is on the fast trajectory with everything, especially with technology, right, and the internet. So we've seen our young creative gravitate to the them Chinese or Japanese um cartoon videos, right? And we forget Cartoon Network, which used to bring the regular stuff. But we're gravitating to something that don't belong to us as Guyanese. One, we don't understand the value of it. Two, and we don't know how to make money. While back in the days, people used to burn this and burn CDs and resell. That was a big what you mentioned earlier, thief in business, right? Whereby if I come out with a song and you want to hear it, I would have buy this back in the days, burn it on 100 more, same thing with CDs, and then resell it in the black market. Today you can't do that, but it's
But
still valuable,
imagine you being anxious to listen to somebody and
brother.
the CD front cover, beautiful. And when you go with the CDs are blank. Happens steady right here in New
Some
York.
people do it to me already. Support my thing, no man.
But
And they got nothing on it.
everything. How you go when you plug it? I tell you DVD, yeah, bro. You go with DVD. Next thing you know, you plug in, blank.
That's some
Listen,
shady business there, man. That's some shady
That
business
was a
there.
way to make bread, my G.
what I'm saying, right? It's just like Martin saying, in order for you to get the product, them days you gotta buy it to get it in order to listen. Now it's digital, and that's where IP actually helps you.
Correct.
Protection of the music for the artist, right, is what helps them to make money. Because every time it's gonna be downloaded or streamed, it generates that type of finance. You know what I mean? And you're making a bread.
Mm-hmm.
Only fitting and only fair for the person that put it all together.
To make a
That's
bread too.
yeah. And I was looking at even for the interest of government, right? So
Mm.
like say Guyana is on the projection of saying that they want to reach to the standard Little Dubai and what's going on, right? So protection makes a country more attractive to both domestic and foreign investors,
Correct.
particularly in technology intensive industries. Investors are more likely to invest in research and development when they know the intellectual asset will be protected. So definitely you will get people coming in more because they know they're under proper
But
intellect.
to kind of get to that same point, Sherwin, Barry Jaggio pointed it out one day on his press conference that hey, in foreign investors said to him they would like to invest in Guyana, but the issue of IP has got to be sorted out thoroughly before they can come in because they want to be able to protect their work.
And he mentioned that fully.
Yes, he did on a Thursday press conference. I could pull it up and I'll put it up on social media for people to see
And,
it.
and if he says something like that, I am wondering what might be the issue that is not something that's coming to the table.
Well, I'll tell you what, Martin and I had looked up some information regarding because we knew that Guyana was removed from the Berne Convention at one point. What we didn't know is that Guyana rejoined the Berne Convention in what was the date, Martin?
1994, the year I was born.
Yep, 1994. They rejoined, but there are stipulations. There is the word force
Mm-hmm.
in there, as in they're forcing Guyana to assent to those laws, and also there is the contribution, which is supposed to be done by Guyana, and that contribution means for the literal work that you've been using without payment for years.
Yes.
Damn.
So naturally, we have whereby which people could call us the Pirates of the Caribbean, because while people don't believe that we belong in the Caribbean, which is a whole problem by itself, we are the pirates nevertheless, right? And I'll try to bring this document on screen where everybody should be able to see it. But to have our system not up to par, up to standard with certain things is highly embarrassing. You know, it's questionable. Same question you asked, Sherwin. Why are we not there? People call me already, ask me the same thing. Yo, Martin, tell me what's going on. What is we issue with this? And the most I could say is, my GD's people, while I do like to say they're incompetent, they don't want to pay attention to what they need to be paying to, which is the IP issue and everything else surrounding it,
I
right?
think it's everybody, not only the government officials, but even the opposition. They really need to
No,
zoom in on
well,
what are
keep in
real
mind,
points.
keep in mind, when I say government, I point to both sides, right? The government for me is the people in charge who have the power to make and break laws, and break in the sense of changing, right? We don't have that right to change laws
Correct,
as
correct.
citizens, right? So I cannot say I could go and if I had the power, trust me, I would have fixed that already. That wouldn't even be an issue for me. You understand me? But I don't have that leverage. The politicians do, the member of parliament do, or members of parliament do. So this was a post posted by an individual, right? And this is what we were speaking on, whereby we have been a part of a certain system, right? And that would read Guyanese artists protect your music. The law already exists, right? Whereby, as we learn, and as I say, as you know better, you do better, right? So Guyana do have the copyright laws. Yes, they do. As we know, some would say they don't, but we say they don't because it's not enforced and we don't know them, right? That you might mute Malachi.
The general population has not been educated about it.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what we
So
need to have.
this bit of post shares the information. Guyana has the copyright laws to protect your music, lyrics, recording, and performance, which I don't necessarily believe we have the laws to cover all of this, but I will continue to do my research. And this is where the legal minds will be able to guide me, right? But I could always be wrong. As we said in the beginning, Google it for yourself.
Yeah,
You
Google it.
understand me?
True.
Nevertheless, under the Copyright Act of 1956. Now there's Lang. 1956, which is the citing for the amendment. You own you own rights when you create an original musical work, which is what we would have mentioned before. If you're able to explain to the judge the process of that work, then you have a lot more leverage than
Yeah,
you do,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
In the event of us saying, "Oh yeah, this is me own," you have to prove how it is yours, right? How it became yours, how you made it, right? And once you're able to do that, you're far ahead. Now it continues to say, right has right lasts for 50 years after your death, which is where the publishing aspect comes in, right? Because if you don't publish it, then nobody knows it. So the moment of publishing, it is out there. Naturally, it lasts that long, right? After your death. Once you have the actual publishing implemented, I think that kind of carries it up a little bit more to about 90 years, I believe, to 120 years. And that is based on your contractual arrangement with your publishers and so on.
It's either that amount of time or it's 75 years. Somewhere there.
Well, again, it's based on the contracts because I
Yeah,
read some
yeah,
contracts
yeah.
and some people would never get back their publishing, right?
No,
While
because they
some
signed bad
have a
deals.
sorry, the 2 year leverage and them thing to go back and
Yeah.
claim it.
Mhm.
So it's based on your arrangement that you make with things. But naturally, if you create that work, 50 years after you pass, your family have full rights to go and claim that, right? But they now have to prove all the necessary to the legal minds, given that you haven't signed your publishing over to anybody else, right? Or
Correct.
your complete rights over.
Yeah.
Now, it continues legal protection against unauthorized use of copyright, which is where we mention again if a bar, a club, a hotel is playing your music, you
Correct.
have the right to go and approach them or take that to court,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, according to the 1956 Copyright Act, we have that leverage, which I do have a copy of it. I will reread and then sit with the lawyers and have a more clear understanding of the 1956 Act. Now, it continues, what can you do now? Document your work. Document your work creation dates. So naturally, once you start going through the process, you have your dates, you have your timestamp, you have your reference. It's good to sign contracts in the beginning, especially if you have people involved, right? Now, once you're able to document that process, you register with a copyright agreement at the commercial registry, which is located in Georgetown. Now, I don't necessarily know how that works as yet, but I will be able to explain that to you in a couple of weeks because myself
Yeah.
and Malika is going through that process as we speak in
Yeah.
Georgetown, right? I could tell
Mhm.
you in America, in Guyana, I can't tell you yet. It's a fairly new process,
Yeah.
right? Now, it says work with trusted legal reps to act on theft, right? Of course, back to the lawyers aspect, they could represent you in that case. Now it's
Yeah.
a
The
commercial
lawyers.
registry contact, Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, and they have a cell phone number right there. Now,
Okay.
I'm not sure if the Ministry of Tourism have anything to do with this. But again, this is new information, and you guys could see the date. This is recent thing that we had engagements with, right? And we are learning. So as we learn, we like to share the information, as they say, yeah, as gatekeep. This is proof that we don't gatekeep. Yeah, just don't be paying attention. You
Well,
understand me?
well, I mean,
So
we could only do so much.
correct. That is one thing we would have been working on in the background, over the weekend and as the week start. But of course, coming back to the protection, since this act exists, we have leverage. And this is for the creators, right? Specifically, the 1956 Act tells you have leverage. So as long as that is registered and documented in Guyana, then we could go use the laws. There's no
Exactly.
use
Yeah, because if somebody
in
uses your
wasting
machine
time.
without permission and you go in and deal with it, you're wasting time.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is where we need our creative minds to now act on their own accord, right? Preferably with a lawyer, but act on your accord and start go looking up your things. You understand me? I am looking for another reference which would have came from WIPO, right? And they kind of
While you're bringing up that reference, let me just
mhm,
say a couple of words. One of the things I do believe is scaring a lot of people with the IP law issue, and it has to do with the business sector as well. People will have to change those names that are not theirs originally.
of course.
Um, they
I mean, it's
may
already
find
not your one.
themselves they may find themselves under penalty for
Mm,
using people's intellectual property that was not theirs. But as it is now, the smartest thing to do as Guyanese manufacturers, as Guyanese sellers, businessmen, whatever, is to go and seek original names for your business, for your products, for your logo. All those things have got to be original. Do
correct.
not look at American or European logos and bring your logo even close to that, because
Mm,
you're going to have problems if you want to do anything with coming out of this area or this region or this territory of Guyana. You're
yep.
going to be blocked because somebody else owns that outside of Guyana. So we
Yep.
got to be careful, very careful, moving forward as a developing nation. And again, I mean, no longer can this team be fully dedicated to informing the Guyanese public on the IP law issue, especially if those affected are not willing to take up the mantle of learning how to change the system as well. So we can't continue to support individuals who are not looking out for themselves or their self interest. Because really, if you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur, you're any one of these people involved, you're a singer, you're an actor, you're a writer, whatever, that's all classified under the umbrella of the creatives. And
Hmm.
you are not making any noise. I mean, we have an agenda where it says to all the creatives and stuff, listen, we want to have 15,000 votes, 5,000 from Berbice, 5,000 from Georgetown, 5,000 from Linden. Those are the creatives. Now, what we plan to do with these 5,000 people is that we're looking at all the political parties and what they have to offer in terms of their manifesto. If and we're not, this is not something that is changeable for us, interchangeable. If we look at a party, and Martin and I are going to be scoping each and every one of them. We want to have interviews with them as well to talk about what are their points, what are their strong points, what are they bringing to the table,
Hmm.
all right, for Guyanese people. And if these parties do not have in their manifesto the issue of IP laws, we're not going to encourage the 15,000 creatives that we've reached out to vote for them, period.
Yes, sir.
All right. So although having a seat may be 6,000, 7,000 votes, 15,000 votes is a lot of people to affect something that's happening, right?
Hmm.
So let's be more like we said. We prefer not to be in a state of acrimony, but in
Well,
a state of um, cooperation. All right.
when forced in a corner, one only have the advantage and disadvantage at their abilities. So
Well,
if you are back we in a corner and we don't have access to prosper, because I've always said this is not more so for me, because I can benefit regardless. I already live in it, right?
yeah,
I am
we
living
benefit.
off of music and the business itself, but I need my children to do the same, and I will be teaching them.
The part of this that we want to see is we want a viable industry at home,
Mhm.
because what happens when you foster that development at home, it is way easier to market that to the rest of the world,
Correct.
right? But when we have to basically take the artists who are, they're not getting that kind of traction at home, and we're trying to create that traction outside of Guyana, it's double the work. It is double the work.
Indeed, indeed. I
So
mean, we could only do so much.
yeah.
I am tired, especially based on the information I received today. I personally don't even want to talk about copyright no more. And this is the truth. You understand me?
Yeah.
But I will continue to burn the midnight oil in every
But
I
aspect I could.
if
I
if
think
if
that would be a great idea from the knowledge, or it is, so we see that the government with initiatives that comes up, if they can come up with this a program, okay, say that we have somewhat something that could be prepared for schools as a special in the sense of a subject where people going into music, um, doing art, and all these different things, right? So, if the government could have come in the collaboration with Ministry of Education, right, and we have good minds like you guys that has so much information in the sense of preparation towards what we know we want people to capitalize on IP.
Correct.
Now, okay, if you want to say, all right, we want to make this something as a projection of you guys, we're gonna contract you guys as consultants towards doing a basic program, or a basic something that you could do on a refresher basis, right? So that
it's
people
like
can,
it's like basic education on the tenets of
but
IP,
you
where it
put it,
starts,
So,
yeah, you
why is
put
it important, that kind of thing.
so now when you go now, it's like a process that you're doing for the whole country,
mhm.
where you guys is taking it by storm, and you know what you're doing, just moving down region by region. What
Well, naturally, sorry
it
to
helps.
cut, right?
Mhm.
But naturally, we have no problem doing that. They just haven't reached out. I can't say why, but the ministers, whether it be culture, tourism, um, information, education, nobody have reached out. No
You see,
representative have reached
one of
out
the
either.
things that happens here in Guyana, Sherwin, the government of the day would prefer individuals who have, as they say, numbers. All right. If they go live and they got a couple thousand people looking at them, although what they're saying really is irrelevant to any form of development, they look at those people as though they have some sort of clout with something, which they do not. What they have is a set of people who are eager for a thrill and an excitement. All right.
No,
But
no, cut to you, Malachi. Those
yeah,
people can be used, but it can be used to actually stream you who got the brain.
It can be used, brother. Here why they can be used.
mhm.
If I started following you because of your nonsense and you suddenly start preaching positivity, you think I still following you? I follow you for your nonsense.
That's how it works, bro. This
Is
is
that
social
man?
media. This is what people. I
But,
mean, look.
but the thing is that okay, in the sense of saying, bro, I come on here every day and I come on here as a comedian and I'm creating different skits, doing all these different things. But guys, on the real, I want you to understand, and also I want to educate my fellow creators, right?
Mm.
So I am going into making sure that we bring out the importance of our work, right? So we can be going with the people that knows exactly how to put this all together, how we can put this all together and get more serious. So the thing is that when a country for me is not about the bloggers, you know. The real essence of you educating is when you can start educating from the children up or the
So
youths.
so
They
I,
actually are the ones you want to grow into this type of lifestyle.
well, I glad you come right back there, right? Because you started there. So the Sierra College of Education, which is a teachers training college, currently offers music. Now, based on information I know, there aren't much qualified musicians to teach music in Guyana, right? The Nation School currently offers video editing and production, I believe, right? Course.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
They
So
do have video editors. Do they have skilled, qualified industry level video editors? No, they don't. Because I would have spent all of my beginning years before I got into the business studying radio broadcasting, television broadcasting, production, right? This is where I started a production company. I used to watch the music videos and movies on the different channels in Guyana, and I would always look at the cuts. Imagine you seen a music video, especially back in the days. Remember, it wasn't all that perfect like how we had it now. So I look at, if the man went catch the angle, it would have been better. And if you add the thing a little more lengthy, it would have been better. Or the video don't even follow the storyline of the song lyrics. But if you follow that storyline, it is way better because now everything working in unison, right? We're able to marriage that relationship between the visuals and the vocals, right?
on that same topic, though, Martin,
Mm,
just a little interjection there. When you talk about the movie creation, right? I know a lot of young Guyanese want to get into that particular field of movie creation, but I would advise them get a bit of the formal structure of how to do these things behind you first.
correct.
At least try, because what happens is that, I mean, you will have a good idea, but the ability to deliver that idea in a formal, structured way that follows on. In other words, any movie has to have an order, has to have a chronological. You have to be able to understand what the characters, who's the main character, why they're there, who's the antagonist, that kind of thing. So we have to learn. And then there are other aspects to it where there's the technical aspect when you're editing it. There's smash cuts, there are different kinds of cuts. You can cut on a sound, you can cut smashing, all kinds of stuff can happen. You can also transition with somebody walking across the screen and stuff like that. So there's so much in terms of the actual workings of creating these things that our people definitely need more exposure on.
Hmm. So
Well, I just still believe like continually saying that exposure and all these different things. But if you don't have people understanding how strong it is to do great work, and after they do great work, it is fully protected, they will always look like if they would not be encouraged to do over quality work if they don't have they know for sure that this when this go out here, that's it for me. Because I can guarantee that everybody can get it in and just use that like
But the
you know,
thing is not there's
you know
no
what,
guarantees in anything. Is that you
right.
have
So,
to,
but when you know that your thing is protected
yeah, you
and
have a product. You have a
own
product
it,
in your
it's
You're more
yours.
inclined to do it.
You
All right.
want to make sure that when it thing and it come under your name, you say for real, ain't no way, this is mine. I
Mm.
argue for something, I go in and fight for something, I sue somebody for something that got quality.
So that is the process that we need. And I could say, right, by all rights, we do have several schools in Guyana, high schools, that is teaching performance arts, right? Now, the problem with the performance arts is a lot of people is writing it for CXC and CAPE. Now, if you're writing performance arts for CXC and CAPE, let's say when you finish, you're going into university, they do have the major communications department, right? Which kind of continues that same aspect of things. It might deal with the journalistic aspect, the radio broadcasting, the television broadcasting, and so forth, right? So now we have the industry at every level. We have it at the teaching level, whereby people are able to go to the CPC and learn in that field, right? With the music. I'm not sure if they have any other parts of that, but we have the nation school teaching the production at their place, their establishment. We have the students learning from the performance arts aspect, right? And that kind of breaks down everything. There's a couple modules that you have to go through in order to hit the exams and things. So by the time you're finished as a student coming out of high school, you have a bit of understanding of performance arts, production
at least
management, and
you
everything.
have a basic working idea. You have a
Correct.
basic working idea.
You also have an understanding of the legal framework a
Yeah.
little bit because remember the module kind of covers everything. They wouldn't teach you to edit and be a producer without telling you how to protect your work in the
Yeah.
smallest way possible, right?
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
as we would have read earlier, is the documentation. Now, what we don't have again is the examples of said process. So they can't readily say, oh, Eddie Grant sue Donald Trump and win. They don't know how that process works, and they could go in the on the internet and pull up that entire court case because once it hit the courts, it's public. But
Correct. Yeah.
they're not gonna go do that. More so, they don't have the examples in Guyana to encourage them to do that.
Well,
So they're at the loss.
the thing is, in law, that's called precedent because it's got to be established somewhere before that
Correct.
this is and why the next case should follow in that very direction as well. So it's called precedent.
So this is where we encourage the creative, especially the young ones. Documentation. As long for me personally, I could know any picture that I would have taken from the time I started taking pictures. I know what belongs to me, right? Same thing
That's
with
for sure.
videos and productions,
Yeah.
right? Same thing with music. I know what I make. I know how I arranged it, right?
Yeah.
So nobody could take it. And if they do, I will be willing to make myself the martyr
Yeah.
and
Well,
run up the court step and spend a couple $1 million. So
we
you could
could.
have the example next year, hopefully, that you take up that mantle
Yeah.
and use that as the precedence.
Hmm.
And I know several other individuals who's willing. Some might not be Guyanese, but Guyanese is stealing their product,
Yeah. Yeah. And
right?
he's stealing the product,
So
and they know.
correct. What we like to do as Guyanese, we don't want to come to the public and embarrass our people. So we like to give them the heads up, right? There are several lawsuits on their way,
Pending.
right?
Coming.
I'm able to say that because I am currently filing several lawsuits on my behalf for my work,
Yeah.
right? But keep
There's
in
also
mind,
international individuals who are coming through us to file them as well.
well, that's what I'm going to say. Keep in mind, we walk outside, we walk in foreigners, that is it.
Yeah.
You understand? So those lawsuits will be coming down the pipeline, and those will be hitting from government institutes,
Yep.
government individuals, and the private sector.
Yep.
Now, based on information, again, we learn there is a little ticklish process, but nothing you can get you with understanding the laws.
Mm-hmm.
Understand me? Once you know better, you do better. I've always said that since I learned that.
Well, I think we've been preaching that people should get on board with this issue for eons now.
And
So
so let me clarify that too. When we say get on board with the issue, you don't have to get on board with me personally.
no,
You don't have to get on board with Malachi. You just have to get on board with the laws that is available for you,
correct.
right?
Use
Because
the laws.
a couple years ago, there was a bunch of music houses or record shops, as we would call
Yeah.
them, right? And they was mass producing them same CD and cassettes. And they
Yeah.
still do today. We have the photocopying industry and the book printing aspect of things,
Right.
mass producing other people's work. Now I'm glad to see several different authors coming out of Guyana. You know how
Yeah.
beautiful that is?
Hmm.
But you know how bad it is that somebody could just hop and steal their work? Because remember, the first person that registers that copyright, trademark, or patent belongs to them. So
Them.
you could put out U book today, and I could go and register U book tomorrow, and I own it. And you can't necessarily do anything about it.
You
That
gotta
is
be
just
careful
how
with
the
those
law
things.
works.
Yeah, you gotta be super careful in Guyana. I think the Minister of Health, Frank Anthony, at one point in time was referring to, um, the forestry being linked with the Ministry of Health, and they would have to look at the issue of IP because they have people in the pharmaceutical industry that will look at raw materials from Guyana's jungle. All right. Um, that is such an important part of our IP protection, especially what comes out of our natural environment, because there's so many products that can be derived from stuff that comes from the interior of Guyana. So I do believe that we have to. I know we've been advised by our team of lawyers that yes, there are protectionist laws which have stopped certain things because once it happened one time, we have learned and we have put things in place and we have adjusted. But what we're asking for now is greater clarity in terms of the enabling environment that the
More
government
so the
wants.
enforcement.
Yeah, most of the
So
enforcement. But
let's say
why I said enabling environment, because we have so many artists home and abroad
mhm,
who would love to contribute to the pool of culture and cultural development in Guyana. But we have a system in Guyana where, for example, and we said this several times, if you are only critical of individuals with power, if you criticize anything that they do, not necessarily just criticize for criticizing sake, which we don't do, we criticize for you to correct that situation, which is critical to you, they kind of look at these issues as, oh, personal attacks. And we said this numerous times. It has nothing to do with personal attacks, but it has to do with you've got to get yourself to a point where you're interacting with the people you're supposed to be serving. And if you're interacting with those people, you will be interacting with us. And we are the ones who, I mean, when it comes to any music industry thing or industry talk in Guyana, I was the first to talk about what we need to do to develop a Guyanese music industry. And that was almost 22 years ago.
Hmm.
And we are still on radio now as now a grouping, because I started this by myself. Then Sherwin, then Martin joined. We're still on the same issue. This is why we said tonight, listen, I mean, we didn't even want to come talk about this because based on the new information that we have talking with our legal team and all of that, we realized, listen, it is something that we've got to put it, we got to lay this at the foot of the people it most affects. All right. So for those artists and those creatives and those people who are in that aspect of the industry, y'all best come together and start working up from now.
Mhm. So
Because
even
you know,
let's switch it into business,
yeah,
right? Because majority of the business people believe it won't affect them, right? Or it have nothing to do with them because they're already making profit.
yeah,
Now, banks have an issue currently whereby IC is being sold in New York, right? I do plan to go drink an IC and taste it and see if I taste the difference,
see, we
right?
compare to VIC and GT.
Good,
Right.
because so I saw the post. I believe Gordon Mosley shared it, right?
Yeah, yes, it was.
Whereby Banks is complaining that the IC in New York is not
They have
their
nothing to do
IC,
with that. It's not their product.
right? And that is a clear cut case of
That's a
copyright infringement.
violation of the whole copyright because they're
Now,
basically infringing.
exactly, this is why I want to go taste it because I do love an icy, right? It's especially the Guyanese one. It's rich in
Hmm.
flavor. You know when the bottle goes, it lasts for a while. It's like man. So I want to
Banks
go
getting free
test,
promo. Anyway, yeah.
but they already losing enough money
See, this is the thing. These giant companies is the ones that has to come
to the
off
forefront.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro.
forefront.
And that's just the beginning now, you know. That what happened to them is just the beginning of what
But
can
at
happen.
the same
That
time,
is why I like what is happening.
but we
Yes.
but at the same time, we are not we attracting because that's what is in the air right now. We're attracting investors, but in order for the big investors, especially when it comes to like they're saying, in the sense of research and all these things, because you
Well,
got a lot of things that you could actually get into to research.
I ain't cutting you short, man, but oh God, don't let me beg for foreign investors right now for come. Please, you know why? Guyanese have not even come to grips with corporate takeovers yet, bro.
Sure.
You understand? And banks is a company that can be taken over by another company, bro.
Easy. Easy,
Easy.
easy. So
They do
let
not
let
understand how they could be taken over.
we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, Malachi, right?
Yeah.
With the Chinese. Now, or even not does the Chinese, but business in general, with the Local Content Act. So the Local Content Act clearly states that company have to be owned, what I believe 50 something percent or more.
It's got to be basically a shared arrangement with the Guyanese
But
and
yeah,
foreign
it
banks.
have to be owned by Guyanese, right? Majority of the percent, I do believe, right? Have to be
Or
owned
at
by
least
Guyanese.
49% of it.
I'll well, this is where you guys are dear,
Mm.
right? The viewers that you're able to go and verify this information for yourself, and of course, contact your legal minds, right? But the Local Content Act pretty much states, and I wouldn't quote it directly because I don't know it out of my head yet. It have to be in part with the Guyanese. So let's look at the Chinese coming in, right? Or anybody wants to come into the country, they have to team up with the Guyanese. Perfect. Guyanese could benefit, of course. But in order for them to take over that company, they have to be Guyanese. So let's say I am American, right? Born, and I see Guyana as a beautiful investment, right?
Hmm.
I could now come in and say, hey, let me open business with Malachi and let me give Malachi a percentage that is required, and he own or control that part of the business.
Well,
And
well,
I
just
do all the money and thing funding. Hold on, right?
No, just before you continue, I have the
Mhm.
act. Let me just give the audience an idea of what the act says,
Perfect.
right? The Guyana Local Content Act mandates varying percentages for local content participation,
Mhm.
ranging from 5% to 100%
Aye.
across different sectors. For instance, 100% local content is required for transportation, visa applications, immigrant support, and customs brokerage.
Nice.
Other areas like office space, rental, and accommodation requires 90%
All right.
local participation. The Act also stipulates that 75% of your management positions in the company should be held by locals or Guyanese. Just
All
wanted
right.
to, yeah, go ahead, Martin.
So let me use the Chinese as an example because people complain how the Chinese come and take over, right? I too would have agreed with you in the beginning before I sat myself down and think about it. The Chinese didn't come and take over, guys. The first president was Chinese.
The chum, they forget.
He been there.
Yeah.
So if you understand the local content act now and you
Mm.
understand the people that we had in the country, we have in the country forever, I could be coming in with the money today, but I go into Malachi, who is a Chinese forever, and buying and growing Guyana.
And we
And
have
we
the,
all work on the one card and take that money back to our beautiful nation, which is China, and invest in our country. Right? Because you know how the mindset works. Was me on is me on, and we gonna develop we own thing. Which is why Guyanese have to stick to we can develop we own thing, right?
gotta
In all
create,
sectors. So
we gotta
we
get into
looking
that
at the Chinese,
mindset of
we looking at the
creating something.
basic Chinese supermarket. Even if we had no Chinese in the country, right? And they now come in and invest.
Yeah.
It only takes you I want to say 5 to 10 years to become a Guyanese. To become a Guyanese with your documents,
Citizen
right?
wise, citizenship.
Citizen wise. So I only need to send about 5 of my family members and sacrifice 5 to 10 years in a foreign country like Guyana to have that citizen documentation, which I wouldn't be losing. I'll only be losing a major percent for only 5 to 10 years. After that, I could come and do the hostile takeover that you was mentioning, Malachi.
Well, I'll tell you what the provisions in that case will be at that point. Um, because the initial investment came from outside of Guyana,
Mm-hmm.
even if the ownership of it, even if they stayed here for 10 years and they became Guyanese,
Mm-hmm.
the initial business arrangement that they brought into the country would not be able to change. It remains the same.
Remember, this is where contracts come in.
No,
I
but
could
this is
sign a contract
that's
with
under
you.
that. That's
Yeah,
that's that's covered under
that's
that local
under
content.
the local content.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me that I have to give you 90% or 100% of my business forever. Remember that forever, that in perpetuity only exists in certain industry.
Well, what we would need to clarify now that you mentioned that, we would have to clarify because it does not say that particular word. It doesn't say in perpetuity.
Which is
That
why I mentioned we only need to sacrifice 5 to 10
5 to
years
10 years. Yeah,
which means
basically.
I can send me 18-year-old child to Guyana now, and in 5 to 10 years, they become Guyanese and own the entire company or collect it back from you. And then bring in the rest of family members and say, hey, we're running it up. This
But
is
I
how
think,
scamming works,
but
guys. White
this is
collar
what I'm telling you.
criminals.
This is what I'm telling you. I think they well thought that out because just like how we can sit down and pick it up, yeah, I'll tell you why. Because what happens with the business, like I said before, regardless of whether you came, you could even come and marry a Guyanese.
Mhm.
All right.
And give he or she that.
And give he or she that, your wife. But you will still have to have all the other provisions in there. You understand?
Yeah.
You
Remember
would still
now,
have, and it
so
still would not revert to you at no point, even if you became a citizen.
no, but at the point you don't even need it to revert to. You already have your drover family members in there. It's they take over. Remember,
Well,
all of them now become Guyanese. So they now cover that management position
Good.
with
But
experience and
but
time.
but that's okay. You ain't running away from your taxes though. You still got paid.
No, of
So
course,
I'm
of
getting it
course,
from you same way.
of course. The end goal is always take your money back to where
Exactly.
it come from.
That's what they want to do. But our job is to ensure that they spend it here.
Exactly. This
Because
is where
taking our foreign exchange out of the country makes us weaker.
this
We're
is
trying
where
to
we need
keep
our
the foreign
people to
exchange.
understand it links direct back into copyright. Because there's no way I could run a business or have a business and Guyana is not readily on contractual arrangements. And I know this, right? Because not every job you go, they tell you sign a contract. Now, when I started doing contracts, some of even if you go on the internet and you pay a couple dollars and
Mhm.
ask them, or even AI right now, you ask ChatGPT to write the contract, they're gonna ask you, do you want me to include certain things in it? Like if I hire Malachi and Malachi creates something on the tenure of working in the business,
Well,
who
you
does
own
that
that.
belongs to?
You're
No,
gonna
no,
end
no,
up owning that.
no. But in me personal business contract, if I take in it, but me now who understands the business and contractual arrangements, I do not allow that clause in any of my contracts. Simple example: my children go to school, right, in America. In the contracts when we, because they go to private school, when we sign them up for school, and this is from New York, Miami, and wherever else they may be, right? When we sign them up for school, a part of that arrangement is we're allowed to use your child likeness and image to promote the business and wherever else. We have the parents have to sign giving the school permission.
Yeah.
I just said no. You are not going to be making money off of my children
No way you're gonna do that.
unless we revisit your terms here. I will give you, because I know I'm sharing them pretty and beautiful and all of that, right? So you could use my children to advertise your business, but I need a percent
Yeah.
of your bread.
Simple.
You
You
understand me?
gotta get a percent because you're using those your children's image and likeness.
Exactly. Same thing for the business. I don't expect Malachi to come or Sherwin to come into my business and not create anything. If you come and create, not me, why in there?
But this is why I'm saying the Guyana government got to look at the population, especially the young ones, and not even too much the young ones, the ones who are like in their 30s, 40s. Those are people who have great ideas, initiatives they want to execute,
Mm-hmm.
Look,
and we need the environment for that. Go
so
ahead,
we
Sherman.
we going crazy with infrastructure, especially like housing, right?
Mm.
We ain't saying that's a bad thing, but I mean,
No,
we
look
gotta
at
look
it.
at other things.
Specific contractors have specific style. Now, as a creator, let me give you the example. Here in the US, there is people that make cake, professional icing cake.
Yeah,
And when you get your icing cake, some people will tell you straight up, you cannot put certain things on that cake because it interferes with or infringes somebody else's creation,
yeah,
right? And I could remember the woman telling us, because we was trying to get the style that we saw, the woman telling us, no, she cannot put that pattern. She has to stick
Exactly.
with pattern like this. So we had
Her
to go
style.
because remember when the cake come out, everybody taking out pictures and start putting it up.
yeah.
Yep.
So the way they start investigating, you gotta tell them now who make this cake because you gonna get a lawsuit if you didn't tell me who make this cake.
Because a lot of the times they want to do stuff like use Hennessy, they want to use Louis Vuitton logo, they want to use Chanel logos
Let's
on these things.
let's make that more simple.
That's
We
why I
could tie
said,
that back into Guyana
yeah,
with
Yeah,
the
but that's why I
chicken.
said with the housing system, we got men that could come on and say, okay, I'm making this style of house. So it becomes competitive. And at the same time, the man get a brand that people say, boy, I want that. Well, you know what? We gotta either go and get the okay from the man, and we could put it in this pattern, so the man definitely can get whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, you're protecting people and their creativity. So many good things happening, but there is no protection for the people that's working so hard, thinking
Mm-hmm.
so hard, going around, going through different things, coming up with different ideas. We got some things that people come up with in here, you know. Like I want this whole America already.
But bro,
Many
one of
things.
the things, let me show you what we're gonna lose next. You know the combination of the sour sauces that we make for chop when we planting chip and we chicken foot and them kind of thing.
See the same egg man was I always get it on the
Them
same.
things can go on just now. Then is when guy needs to understand how important these things we talking about are. Recipe protection. All right?
That's why I was going to tie back in what Sharon was saying with
Yeah.
our issue in Guyana, because I believe a couple years ago we had a case where is we do chicken
Yes. It was
right?
Demico versus KFC at that
Good.
point. Yeah.
So that is clear as day, right? And let's tie it into agriculture, right? Because we're dealing with the copyright intersection of
Yeah.
things, right? So we don't want to just show how copyright is within the creative space in music.
But how it
We want to
affects
show
people
every other
agriculture.
industry, right?
Yeah.
Now, agriculture. Malika, you would have mentioned our unique style of harvesting cane.
Which is really antique. It's like the
Now,
first way that cane was harvested and crushed and all of that is the same way we've been using from since slavery to now.
so let's do this.
Cut
The
cane,
president,
punt, that kind of thing.
the president recently came out at, I think was the Enmore Martyrs
Yeah,
Memorial thing,
memorial. Yeah.
and he mentioned the Gaisuku is going to be looking at different aspects of manufacturing.
Well,
They
when he
don't.
said that, I was hoping he was looking at the issue of value added because they're
Mm.
manufacturing the sugar already, but it's a matter of adding value, which would be
You know
instead of
what?
selling it in bags,
They
just selling it off in bags.
they actually tried to introduce
Uh-huh.
chains back in the day, years gone by. They
Okay.
actually did it. It was like bell loaders where they come, they actually pick up the cane, they cut the cane and everything, they do everything. But the
Mm.
problem is, it takes away jobs from the guys that is cutting and loading and fetching.
This is where the
So now
copyright protects
it,
that job.
it
But
goes
but
back.
listen, Sharon, if we decided like what the president is saying, if you injected a minimal capital, not a lot, but you inject a capital, and what you do through the Ministry of Tourism is use our cane production process as part of our tourism product. All right, because nobody, not even people in the Caribbean, bro, ain't growing no cane, burning it, and go and cut it, lift it in bundle, throw it in punt, push the punt down the trench, put it in, get it to the factory, get it crushed. That process is an antiquated process. However, we can add value to that to show individuals this is what the sugarcane process was back then. But then here's where you can add another level of value to it. How you package the sugar coming out from Gaisuko. Now, what you're looking at is when Gaisuko was established. All right. And you use since 19 Olang, the process was created to create these sugar crystals like gold. That's the uniqueness to what we're doing. Because if you look at all the other sugars that are produced, for example, Malaysia and other people, they have sugar, but you do not get that gold crystal like sugar that we get here in Guyana.
This is where it comes back to the branding, right? Back into copyright again
Yeah.
of things. Because if they're able to protect that process and brand the product, they're able to make a far more profit, right? Because now you have the leverage of covering your stuff. And keep in mind, you don't have to make the entire industry like this, but you do have a unique location, style, and process. And that is what you need to cover and protect,
Exactly, that's what you need to.
right?
This is
You
what we've
could
been taught.
dedicate a specific part or a specific area in the industry
Yeah,
in Gaisuku factory just for that. And this is where it ties in, of course, to tourism, because now people from foreign are like me. When I go my one true little cane, I could go up to Gaisuku,
or have a
walk
tour
in the
bus. Have
nice
a tour
place,
bus. Take me to Gaisuku.
cut
Run me
my
through the
own
entire
cane,
process of how cane is made, how
juice my
sugar.
cane,
Yeah.
do all of that, and they able to make money from it. This is where I think last week we spoke about industrializing things.
Yep. This is
We
what we talk.
don't have a lot of industry in Guyana. And the industries that we do have are so old that the people running it are so old, don't know how to make the money from it.
They
Right?
got to make money in the modern age. It's about marketing. If you're not, look, one of the things I learned in Europe, working in the commercial sector, um, the first time was a lot of businesses really most of their money goes into advertising, marketing, advertising campaigns. All right. I have literally seen a business that was in a room that had a huge marketing budget that was able to market itself so well, but they were in a room. All right. They were able to market themselves so well that they were able to secure multi-million-dollar US contracts and were able to move out of that room and to get the things that they needed to fulfill the job. But they knew the strategy that they needed. As we say in the music business, fake it till you make it. But they just had an excellent marketing strategy. All right. So I'm hoping, again, I know President Ali may be listening to our conversation. We want, just like every other Guyanese, the opportunity to contribute to our nation, meaningfully, of course, not to be marginalized, not because we are critical of certain things going on. That means we don't have a contribution to make. And I think, that is where our politicians need to be a little bit more accepting, that when people see things and they call them out, is not for acrimony, but for them to look at it with a critical eye as well and say, listen, do we really need these things? And
Well,
how does it affect the
it's not
population?
like the
That's what they
government
need to
is
do.
have it's not like the government is have a regular meeting with the public and say, guys, tell me what bothering y'all. Let me see how we could
The
fix it.
You see, this is the thing. The, well,
Ooh. Sure, we chopping up there.
I thought it was me side for a second. I thought the
No,
plane too hot to cut in everything.
nah, it's hard for real, but it's not it's not us, it's Sherwin. Sherwin, you seem to be having a bit of a glitch with the internet, but it's just about that time we got to wrap up tonight's conversation. You hearing us, Sherwin?
Is what the
yeah,
Matrix
yeah.
do, you
You
know,
wonder
man?
where this come from.
You're in the Matrix.
You're in the matrix. Anyway, go ahead, Sherwin. Your final thoughts before we wrap it up. Go.
All right. The thing is that listen, this whole thing is knowing that if you want to have a government that is saying that we want to make sure that we build, because I think I heard from one of the speeches that we will be focusing more on the people in the new term, right?
Yeah, we heard that. We heard that.
And of course, this thing is where you got to make sure you go to the root. This thing is not about the big things. You got to go to the root of what makes it possible for people to actually be optimistic of knowing that they can make they can have make something or create something and get something out of it.
But that,
Because
that 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 very drive, Sherwin, is the drive to contribute to the nation. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
so the thing is that even though a man might not be able to say he coming out on his own, or he don't want to come out on his own, but because there is another person that has the similar, he's doing a similar something on a trademark or something, he can come and say, okay, all right, I'm gonna make an agreement with you, or we're gonna set up something that every time these things are sold, or to say like a man, you going under somebody's label. Every
Yeah.
time this music is played, and you think you get paid, I get paid. So I'm working with this. This is how things start for people where
But
they
Yeah.
constantly
that is how it should be.
But we're
But
hoping,
without any
right?
laws, we can't sit on anything. For
No, but that,
instance,
but minus the laws, though, I do believe that if we make an attempt, because when I say we, it wouldn't be any of us. We're talking about the creative people who actually creating their work. All right, we can give advice at this stage moving forward, but they can approach these businesses, whether you want to do it solo because you believe you have the material enough that they'll be interested in. You can approach them regarding, because all we have a lot of talented individuals, but you don't see them showcase at, for example, Movie Tongue. We don't see them showcase at the Marriott. We don't see them showcase at the Pegasus. So what really needs to happen, excuse me, is that all these creatives need to find their niche and get out there and start working. And that work that you're doing is going to encourage the private sector to say, okay, let me work with these guys because they're doing the actual business that we
mhm,
want to move with. But you can't approach a business 1 week you're on and then the next week you're missing. They're not going to do business that way,
correct, correct.
you know?
So
So, yeah, go ahead,
let
Martin,
me
because,
let me
I was just
enlighten
wrapping up.
all Guyanese, not just anybody in business or in a specific area, but all Guyanese,
Yeah,
right? On how copyright intersects. Now, there's a lot of people with cameras today in Guyana, whether it be a phone, high production
ring doorbell.
cameras and all these things, right? Video cameras and so on. And I saw the airport did an advertisement on
Yeah,
the new machinery and technology that is installed. While it's a good initiative to go digital, right?
yeah,
Make your process easy as you come in and come out the country, the video have people inside.
real people.
Real
When they should
people.
have had models.
No, 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 hold on. Nothing around the real people. Now, how copyright intersects is every individual, not just for the airport, but for everybody. If you see somebody with a camera at big market and they take a picture of you and they did not pay you, even if it's a cent or a sweetie, if they did not pay you, they owe you
or
money today.
get to consent. They also could they gotta
Correct. But
consent.
this
Can
is
I just
business, brother. Nobody signs over their consent just so easy.
a lot of people do it in Times Square, bro. Nobody pull up on the website. Can I take a picture of you? And put them on the website. And people are excited. They say, you know what? No problem. And they start posing.
Correct. But
So,
we Guyanese love money, brother. So we in standing up waiting on a bus at big market. For you come and take a picture or a video, as we see a lot of music videos now going out with the big market. For you use me like this in the background and not pay me. These are actors,
Yeah. That,
right?
that,
It's
that, that, that.
supposed to be paid
Well,
actors
what, what,
in
what,
the
what,
background.
what my suggestion would have been for them so that they can cover themselves is to ensure that those people who were involved in that particular ad did sign release forms.
Correct. So let's make it professional,
Yeah,
right?
they better make it professional.
The businesses who's doing commercials, right? Like the airport, and I reposted that on my page
Hmm.
and I called it out. I did that for one reason. I want to show the world, I want to show Guyana where we are going wrong, right? They
Yep.
had no right to use anybody likeness and image, and I guarantee you they did not seek everybody clearance because they
No,
had
they
way
didn't.
too much people
Yeah,
passing through that system to get clearance, right?
yeah,
So I know for sure they didn't sign any waiver on that. And we're not accustomed to contracts. Remember, guy, and I got enough problems,
yeah.
right? But again, there is no sign when you enter the airport that says sound may be loud in this building. Um, the cameras that is recording 24/7 is going to be capturing you as long as you're on the premises. Them signs that don't exist. Simple things could cover any business and anybody.
Correct.
For instance, when you walk into my place, I just tell you, "Me insurance, please don't fall outside." You understand me? 'Cause you might get hop a little trench, you might get hop a brick. I got nothing happening on me premises. Don't fall by me. You
So
understand
you
me?
may be able to sue me. You
You know,
know.
Exactly.
one of the things, just to say a comment that came in. I just
Mhm.
want, I just want to look at the last part.
Yeah.
Appreciate the people who are going back home to contribute back to the country. And this is something that I see even at the airport, that they don't there is no kind of training regulations or way of approach. The way things are being, even with identification of themselves, of self, approaching in the sense of identifying what's the reason, all these different things, no way along the line. Everything is just like you are somewhat in some kind of guilt, a guilt, a guilt thing, something going along the line. But like I said, bro, there's so many people that wants to go home because of what's happening. They wants to test the ground. They want to test the water. You gotta give them. There has to be something implemented.
Bro, let me show you how we could even make this a lot simpler. They got companies like I know, for example, right there in Little Guyana, they got several companies want to come home. I sure Sibils want to come and do a Sibils home.
Yeah, it would be real nice to have this franchise coming
I
home.
sure the roti shop that they on Liberty want to come and do the same thing at home where they come from.
There's no guarantee because, like telling you, Stable got like give you this here. Stable got something that they experiment called the pepper pot party.
I'm
Right?
telling you, bro.
If he
Yeah.
come home with a pepper pot party, it's not protected. Who
No,
says that
somebody can pick up that.
he already protected over here, but over there it gone Wild West?
You
Cause
got Wild West.
when you think in GT, you might see somebody gravitate to you, think and making money. Somebody else,
Everybody got in the thing, right? It's like the egg ball business. The egg ball business was around for a very long time. Somebody came up with a nifty recipe to make this egg ball now add value to this egg ball, add taste to this egg ball. As soon as they did that, several other stars pop up all over the place, claiming they are the original egg ball and they're doing it just like the original egg ball. I mean, come on, no protection. But guys, we got to wrap it up. Just about 25 minutes after the hour. We got to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you again to all the contributors, all those people who are watching us online. Uh, check us out tomorrow right here on Majestic Music Radio. We're gonna have the Rush Guyana's Industry Show, where we give you the best music, best vibe out of 83,000 square miles. Guys, we gotta close it down for tonight. Shout out to the audience and do follow, get more educated. Read, look at this issue of IP, see how it's affecting our country, and
Mhm.
make good decisions in this election coming up. Because for us, we are looking at um, we are in we are in radio, we are in music, we are in the creatives, and we want to have those laws in place so that we can benefit. And we know a lot of Guyanese. We know 5,000 of them in Linden, 5,000 of them in Georgetown, and 5,000 of them in Berks. And we want to be able to benefit. So the government of Guyana, what is called constructive criticism. That's what we're talking about. All right,
Mhm.
guys, you don't know.
Yeah,
but
man.
Disclaimer.
Yeah,
Disclaimer.
I got you. I got you. The views, opinions, and statements expressed on the conversation are solely those of the individual host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of our advertisers, Majestic Music Radio, Gem Radio, or Gem Network. The content of this show is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Listeners' discretion is advised. Neither the station nor the network assumes any responsibility or liability for the accuracy, completeness, or validity of the information presented. All content is subject to change without prior notice. As we always say, I do
Google it.
hope y'all Google it
Well, you know how we say it. Love your world, love you. Guyana, one people, one nation, one destiny. That's the motto
all the
here.
time.
All
Yes,
right.
Bless.
sir.
And all Guyanese got to know that. All right.
Mhm.
Love you. Until tomorrow from 8 to 11 on Majestic Music
In the
Radio.
morning.
We out of here.